Hey there guys, and welcome back to the channel. As always, thank you so much for clicking on this video and joining in the movie discussion. I really appreciate you being here. So we've got 3 juicy news stories to dive into, so let's start off with this. Release date announced for 28 years later, timed for a major franchise anniversary. And this article comes to us from comicflicknews.com. So filming is set to commence for the zombie prequel, 28 years later. The release date for the highly anticipated horror installment has now been unveiled. So returning to the director's chair is Danny Boyle, while Alex Garland is penning the script. Although plot details remain undisclosed, the film is poised to kickstart a new trilogy, with Nia DaCosta, director of Candyman, in discussions to helm the second part. The thing that makes me very nervous about that, Nia DaCosta, for those of you who may not know, was the director behind the much acclaimed The Marvels. Obviously the biggest Marvel Cinematic Universe flop that there's ever been. It lost several $100 million. So having Nia DaCosta, the director of The Marvels, on board to do the second part of, you know, the 28 years later kind of soft reboot has me very nervous. And I'm sure it'll have a lot of you guys nervous after the kind of the whole kind of disaster of The Marvels itself. But let's hope that she can redeem herself and, you know, do a great job when it comes to 28 years later. So the star-studded cast of 28 years later features Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, and Jack O'Connell, the latter portraying a pivotal character across the trilogy. Sony has officially announced that Boyle's 28 years later will hit theatres on June 20th, 2025. So we've got about a year in 1 month or so about 13 months away. I can't wait for this. It looks incredible. I mean, the 28 Days Later franchise is all kinds of crazy. Having those kind of realistic zombies where they can run at full speed. They're not like slow, kind of clunky zombies like in The Walking Dead, where you could just outrun them. In 28 Days Later, they have these super fast running zombies. They're really agile. They can jump, they can climb, they can, you know, do all kinds of stuff. And, you know, trying to get away from them is just a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to trying to escape zombies, that's for sure. So, strategically aligning with the franchise's 22-year anniversary in the United States. Notably, the original 28 Days Later debuted domestically on June 27th, 2003. Wow, that movie came out over 20 years ago. Absolutely crazy. Crazy to think that that's how long ago this franchise started. But guys, I do recommend it. If you haven't seen 28 Days Later, the very first movie in the franchise, go back and check it out. Obviously, it's a bit old now, but it's one of the most classic zombie movies you'll ever see. Fantastic, and check it out if you haven't seen it, guys. So, filming is slated to commence in Northumberland in May 2024, with no specific end date at the time of reporting. Stay tuned for further updates as production progresses. And here we have a screenshot from the first 28 Days Later movie. The guy wakes up in a coma he's in central London, there's not a person in sight, and yeah, having a zombie chase you, but not just a zombie that's on fire. So it's a bit of a double whammy, but yeah, this is an iconic picture from that first movie. You know, just absolutely incredible take on the zombie kind of genre, and it, you know, spurred on obviously a sequel, and now we're getting the 28 years later. So I'm glad they're coming back to this franchise. They realize that they've got a bit of gold here, I think, and I think they're going to mine the crap out of it over the next couple of years. So 28 years later faces big competition. Obviously coming out in 2025, we've got a whole slew of really good big Hollywood movies coming out. Can it contend with those big movies? Let's go down and have a read and see what other movies are coming out around the same time that this 28 years later production is going to be coming out, and see what kind of competition it has. So the revelation of 28 years later's release date arrives amidst a surge of momentum for the film, which has languished in development limbo for nearly 17 years. Development limbo for 17 years. Wow, that's insane. With filming yet to commence, the swift announcement of a release date for the threequel is somewhat unexpected. Yeah, I mean, that release date just came out of nowhere, but it's great to hear that it's officially got a release date now. You know, it kind of feels a lot more tangible, the fact that there's actually a release date. It's not just some kind of production out there in the mythos that may or may not happen. The fact that it's actually got a release date means, you know, we can expect to actually see this movie come out at some point. So, however, considering the plans for 2 additional installments, it's understandable that the studio is eager to lay the groundwork for the future by expediting the launch of new films. Yeah, the thing is, though, we've seen this in Hollywood before, where they get ahead of themselves, you know, announcing 2 or 3 movies at a time within a franchise, and you know, the first movie comes out, doesn't do as well as expected, and then the rest of the franchise is panned. We have to put out that first movie, the 28 years later, the first part, and hopefully it does well critically, it does well box office wise, and hopefully that will then greenlight the second and third kind of installments. Because if that first movie comes out and it just bombs and it's not well received, then I think the other two parts are going to be scrapped pretty quickly. So we have a picture of the zombies here. As you can see, they don't look like your typical zombies, like in The Walking Dead, where they're kind of falling apart and the flesh is like melting off their faces. That's the kind of Walking Dead, the typical thing that you kind of envision when you think of zombies. In 28 Days Later, the franchise, they look like normal humans, but their eyes kind of glow red. They have like a rage virus. So they just basically turn into these rage machines. They run at full speed. They rip people apart. They eat your innards and all this kind of stuff. But they retain a lot of their function as humans, whereas normal zombies don't. And that's kind of what separates 28 Days from a lot of the other zombie movies within the zombie genre. And that's what makes it interesting for me anyway. So, indeed, while 28 years later, June 2025 release date is eagerly anticipated, it also places the film in direct competition with some formidable contenders at the box office. Yeah, this is where it could struggle. Could we potentially see the release date move if other movies are going to, you know, come up against it competition-wise? We'll have to wait and see how that works. So, kicking off this month is the highly anticipated return of the John Wick franchise with the Ballerina spinoff. Could not be more excited for that. Give me all the John Wick. John Wick, give me all the John Wick. As the month progresses, 28 Years Later will face off against other major releases, including How to Train Your Dragon, live-action reboot, and the horror sequel, The Black Phone 2. Yeah, The Black Phone was a very interesting movie. Another movie I recommend watching if you haven't seen it, The Black Phone, really good horror movie. Below is a glimpse of the current calendar of June 2025 movie releases. So this is the movies here that we can expect 28 years later to go up against. So on June 6th, we have John Wick Ballerina, like we already talked about. June 13th, How to Train Your Dragon, live action. That's going to be a mega popular movie, I think, because the animated features have done amazingly well. Seeing this in live action, I think is going to do amazingly well. June 20th, obviously 28 years later. June 27th, The Black Phone. So it is surrounded here by some high-profile projects that are coming out that month. With such fierce competition, it will be interesting to see how 28 years later fares at the box office amidst these heavyweight contenders. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do some really good creative marketing with the 28 Years Later franchise to get people on board. The zombie genre has been done to death over and over and over, and it's kind of an oversaturated market. We've had The Walking Dead, that's been on for the last like 10 or 15 years, you know, and a lot of people fell off the franchise, and there's just been so much zombie content in recent years. How is this going to separate itself? How are they going to market this movie that's going to get people interested in the zombie genre once again? We'll have to see how the marketing department does. But I think a lot of it, like I say, will come down to the marketing. They're going to have to put out some impressive, you know, posters and trailers and stuff to get people on board. So even after June, 28 years later release date, we'll see it facing the next Jurassic World movie, an untitled film from South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and James Gunn's Superman reboot. Since Sony looks to establish a new trilogy with the threequel, its box office success will be vital to seeing how these plans enacted. Yeah, like I said, they got to bring out the first movie, and they've got to do well with the first movie, unless they're going to film all three movies back to back. But I've not heard anyone saying that they're going to do that. So if that first movie comes out and it doesn't perform well, then they probably won't go ahead with the other two. So that being said, given the studio also continues to push forward with Sony's Spider-Man universe, in spite of Madam Web and Morbius' infamous floppings, a strong, crucial reception for 28 years later could be just as beneficial for the future installments moving forward. The franchise's prior installment, 28 weeks later, is available to stream on Hulu. So that's where you can check it out, guys. If you want to see 28 weeks later, you can watch it on Hulu. But yeah, so not only is it kind of like a oversaturated genre of the zombie genre, it's going up against some kind of heavy hitters in the Hollywood movies for the month of June. So it's got a lot stacked up against it. But as I say, the marketing department has got a lot of work cut out for them to try and get people on board for this movie. But the 28 Days Later franchise does hold a lot of weight. It does have a cult following for it. So I think the name itself will lend a lot of credence to this upcoming movie. Crystal Lake update, A24 going a different way with the Friday the 13th TV series. So this article comes to us from Comic Flick News. So, amidst the recent confusion surrounding Cystal Lake, A24, Peacock, and Bryan Fuller's television series expansion of the Friday the 13th franchise, conflicting reports have surfaced about the project's status. While initial rumours suggested that A24 had axed the series, clarifications have since emerged, indicating a different direction behind the scenes. So, I have to say, right up front, on my personal opinion, I think this series is a really bad idea. You're doing basically a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th series without actually having Jason Voorhees. Well, Jason Voorhees is in it, but he's not the hockey mask wearing killer that we're all used to. It's before he became that. Is anybody really interested in seeing young Jason Voorhees going to camp? Like, does anybody want to see that? Is that something that they should do? Is that a time period within the Friday the 13th franchise that anybody actually wants to see? A Friday the 13th movie without, the hockey mask killer that we all know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I don't understand why you would even want to make this or who would want to see it. But then again, I could stand corrected. If you guys, jump in the comment section, let me know what you think about that. But I just think it's crazy. So in an Instagram update, Bryan Fuller addressed the situation, revealing that he is no longer involved with the Cystal Lake series. However, despite his departure, A24 remains committed to the project, hinting at an ongoing effort to bring it to fruition. So, Fuller reflected on his experience adapting classic horror and emphasized the necessity of visionary approach to such projects. He cited his previous work on Hannibal as an example of successful storytelling despite challenges encountered along the way. So yeah, obviously this is a scene here from I believe this is the very first Friday the 13th movie. Everybody knows the story. Jason Voorhees, when he was a kid, he drowned in the lake at Camp Cystal Lake. And he obviously sank to the bottom of the lake, and that's how he kind of became the mythical ogre monster with the hockey mask and the machete, and he gained all the supernatural powers and all that kind of stuff. But before that, he went to Camp Cystal Lake as a kid, and before he drowned and became the classic killer that we all know. And he was deformed, he was bullied by all the other kids, and the camp counselors weren't watching him, and that's how he drowned. So, that's kind of a lot of the prequel story there. But, again, who would want to see a prequel story about Jason Voorhees before he became the killer? Like, I don't know where they're going with that and why anybody would want to see it. But I know I'm just repeating myself at this point. But a lot of it just doesn't make sense to me. So, for reasons beyond our control, A24 has selected to go a different way with the material. We hope the final product will be something the Friday the 13th fans all over the world will enjoy. Has selected to go a different way with the material. I'm not quite sure what that means, but like I'm saying, I don't get this series, and I don't understand who it's for. A24 and Peacock are currently on the lookout for a new showrunner for the series, making a pivotal moment in the development of Cystal Lake. Originally greenlit with a straight-to-series order for Peacock in 2022, Cystal Lake was envisioned as an expanded prequel to the iconic Friday the 13th franchise, promising the inclusion of both Jason Voorhees and his mother, Pamela Voorhees. Notably, original Final Girl, Adriana King, has committed to a recurring role in the A24 television series. So yeah, back in the very first movie, for those of you who may not have seen it, Jason Voorhees wasn't the actual killer, wasn't the kind of the antagonist in the movie. That was his mum, Pamela Voorhees. There was a load of people that turned up at Cystal Lake, and she was the killer. And then I don't believe it's until the third movie, the third Friday the 13th, that's where Jason actually gets his iconic kind of hockey mask look. But again, it's a prequel series before he became the classic killer, the iconic horror icon that everybody thinks of. So his mum's going to be there, he's going to be at camp, he's going to be getting bullied by kids because of his kind of disfigured look. And yeah, I don't know. I would watch it just out of curiosity, but I'm just kind of like, I don't get it. Like, Friday the 13th without Friday the 13th kind of thing. It's kind of like, what are we even doing? It's kind of strange. It's kind of like having a Nightmare on Elm Street prequel before the guy became Freddy Krueger. It's kind of like, I don't just want to see a story about regular Joe before he became Freddy Krueger. Like, who's interested in anything like that? I don't get it. So under the initial creative lineup, Bryan Fuller was set to assume multiple roles as the writer and showrunner and executive producer, with Victor Miller, the writer of the original classic, producing alongside Mark Tobaroff. Rob Barasamin and A24 Kevin Williamson, known for his work on Scream and Sick, was also tapped to pen an episode. So with the search for the new showrunner underway, the future of Cystal Lake remains uncertain. Yet fans eagerly anticipate future updates on this highly anticipated project. Stay tuned for more development as they unfold. Yeah, another thing that I just thought about actually that comes to mind, I remember reading a few months ago, because the whole rights surrounding Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees, I believe that A24, they have the rights to like a TV series, but they can't actually use the iconic kind of killer guy himself, you know, the hockey mask and everything. That's kind of reserved for another studio to use in a film capacity, but they can't actually use that in the series. If I'm remembering that right, I think that's actually how it's happening. So they can make a prequel series, but they can't have the iconic Jason look. So yeah, I believe that's the breakdown of the rights when it comes to the actual character as of the moment. So, what are your thoughts on the latest developments surrounding the Crystal Lake series? Are you excited to see how A24 and Peacock will reshape the iconic franchise for television? Share your opinions and speculations in the comment below. Yeah, again, so that's kind of where we are, guys. So there's a bit of an update. They lost the showrunner. It seems that A24 is going in a very different direction with this show. It's been in development limbo for the last few years, especially with the rights battle over, you know, Jason and Friday the 13th. So, here, adapting classic horror is something I have experience with. We've already kind of read that, yeah. So, yeah, that's where we are. They lost their showrunner. They're looking for a showrunner. But it's kind of going to be focused on Jason as a kid who's deformed and at camp. And is it something that people want to see? Is it something you want to see? Is it something you're interested in? Or do you, like me, think that it's kind of, what is the point of kind of a Friday the 13th story as a prequel, seeing him at camp? Does anybody care about that? Like, at this point, I'm just repeating myself. I've kind of repeated that kind of mantra kind of like 3 or 4 times. But that's kind of where I am. I'm just kind of bewildered and a bit perplexed by what the point of this series actually is. But guys, you may be able to prove me wrong. Jump into the comment section. Let me know. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Is this something you're looking forward to? Whatever your thoughts are, pop them in the comment section and let me know. Can't wait to see what you have to say about this. Sigourney Weaver in talks to join the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. This comes to us from Comic Flick News as well. So, the Star Wars universe is expanding its galaxy once again, as Sigourney Weaver is in discussion to join the cast of the upcoming movie set in the world of the Mandalorian and Grogu. This cinematic venture marks Lucasfilm's return to the big screen after 7 years since The Rise of Skywalker, and is one of the 2 films spun off from the Disney Plus series created by Dave Filoni. So yeah, Dave Filoni is obviously going to be the kind of shepherd now behind kind of the Star Wars Mandalorian series of movies going on the big screen that are coming up soon. But having Sigourney Weaver, you know, she's absolutely beloved by the public, most people. I don't know of anyone who doesn't like Sigourney Weaver. I mean, she's been in a lot of genre films, obviously in Alien, she's been in Avatar, you know, all these kind of classic sci-fi movies. And lending her name and her credibility and her acting talent to something like this, The Mandalorian and Grogu, can only go a healthy way to kind of bolstering the project and getting more people interested. It's definitely got me more interested in this project. Having a Sigourney Weaver on board. Although she's in talks yet, guys, so take it with a pinch of salt. It says in talks, so, you know, that may fall through. She may be confirmed, you know, tomorrow or today, the fact that she's actually signed on. So we'll have to wait and see how that all works out. So while plot details for the movie remain tightly under wraps, fans eagerly anticipate the return of the beloved Star Wars characters. With Pedro Pascal, that guy seems to be everywhere at the moment, Pedro Pascal. You know, he's in The Last of Us, he's in Star Wars, he's in the Fantastic Four, he's just kind of all over the place, this guy. Pedro Pascal confirmed to reprise his role as the titular bounty hunter. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Weaver is currently in negotiations to join the cast, although specifics about the character remain undisclosed. So as for now, no official deal has been struck for Weaver's involvement in the Star Wars universe. Nevertheless, anticipation is high for her potential role in the film, scheduled for release on May 22nd, 2026. Filming for the project is slated to commence in June. Stay tuned for further updates as the Star Wars saga unfolds. Yeah, I mean, this is great news. I mean, this is, you know, like I say, Sigourney Weaver, I mean, she's loved within, you know, the genre type of movement, genre films, like Alien, like Avatar and stuff like that. And adding talent to your film is always a win. Sigourney Weaver, you know, she's a great actress. She's great world-class talent. And I'd be interested to see what kind of character is she going to be playing. You know, is she going to be another bounty hunter? Is she going to be like a Jedi or something? Or, you know, is she going to be a Force wielder? It'd be interesting to see what kind of character that they kind of write for her. But either way, she's going to go a long way to definitely improving this project. So, should Sigourney Weaver's casting deal be finalised? Like I said, guys, remember, it hasn't been finalised. It says in talks. It would mark another significant milestone in her illustrious career, starring in major sci-fi franchises. Weaver rose to fame with her iconic portrayal of Ellen Ripley in the Alien series. Everybody, you know, universally beloved in that series. Appearing in her first 4 films of the franchise, followed by her role in Ghostbusters series. In recent years, she has continued her trend by joining James Cameron's Avatar. I really enjoyed her performance in Avatar. I thought she was great in Avatar. One of the best characters in that series by far. Franchise as Kiri and Dr. Grace Augustine. So while details about her character in The Mandalorian and Grogu remain undisclosed, Weaver's diverse filmography offers intriguing possibilities. Like we were just talking about, you know, what kind of character is she going to be playing? A Force wielder? Is she going to be a Jedi? Is she going to be, you know, another Mandalorian type character? Is she going to be a completely brand new character from a new faction we've maybe never even heard of? Something original. That would be a first for Star Wars, wouldn't it? Coming up with something like different from what we already know, not just going back to the same kind of group of characters that we kind of just see in every single, you know, piece of media from Star Wars. So, known for portraying her both heroic and villainous characters, her past roles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Defenders miniseries, and The Cabin in the Woods suggest versatility. Considering Giancarlo Esposito's portrayal of the formidable Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian, Weaver could potentially bring another formidable adversary to Pedro Pascal's titular character. Yeah, I didn't even think about that when I was just talking about potential characters she could play. Obviously, there's a villainous character that she could be playing as well. She does a great job playing a villain. So, as speculation mounts, fans eagerly await further updates on Weaver's role in the expanding Star Wars universe. We say expanding Star Wars universe, but it's not really expanding. It feels like Star Wars kind of concentrates on the same group of characters in every single movie, and it doesn't really move very far outside of this kind of circle of Star Wars central characters. You have the Skywalkers, and then it kind of expands out a little bit. And then, obviously, you have, like, little characters dotted around the Skywalkers. And they tend not to go too far outside of the circle. I think they're scared of, if they move away from characters that we actually know, then it just becomes another generic sci-fi movie. There's no recognizable characters in there. So, I think that's maybe what they're a little bit worried about, in terms of kind of expanding into new characters. So, exploring different narrative angles. It's equally intriguing to envision Sigourney Weaver as an ally to Pedro Pascal and the enduring Baby Yoda. I think that's the only reason why people are really interested in this movie, to be honest, the fact of Baby Yoda in it. I want to see a bunch of enemies, right? And I want to see Baby Yoda use the Force, and I want to see him wreck fools. Absolutely. Everybody knows that his race of beings, I believe that they're called Tridactyls, if I'm not wrong. That's the kind of name that's given to them. They're like, obviously, when it comes to wielding the Force, they're super powerful with wielding the Force. I want to see Baby Yoda just wreck fools with the Force, just like throwing people about and just, you know, squishing people. And I just want to see him like absolutely wreck fools in one scene. Then I'd be happy. So, with the restoration of the Bounty Hunter's planet in The Mandalorian Season 3, the film could introduce Weaver as a pivotal figure in the Mandalorian hierarchy, potentially serving as a key advisor to Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan. However, until a deal is officially confirmed and plot specific emerge, the possibilities for Weaver's role in the Star Wars universe remain wide open. Yeah, like I said, she's a world-class talent. She could play a villain, she could play an ally, she could pretty much play anyone she wants, and I'm pretty sure that Lucasfilm would be amazingly happy to sign an actress of her caliber into the movie. Like I said, it'll get a lot more people interested in what's going on. But, because a lot of people are down on the whole Star Wars IP at the moment, after the dreck that we've been getting over the past few years. The Book of Boba Fett, man, like, every time I think about that, it just makes me want to kind of throw up. That gang of kids on those, like, the scooters, kind of like the Vespa scooters, like the Star Wars scooters, like, what was that, man? It was so bad. Oh, I just can't believe it. They did Boba Fett dirty in that series, man. But we could talk about that all day long. But guys, that's where we are. So it looks like Sigourney Weaver's in talks to join the Mandalorian and Grogu. Are you interested in this Star Wars project? Do you not really care about it? Do you think this is a good casting if she gets signed on? A bad casting? Whatever your thoughts are, guys, pop it in the comment section. I can't wait to see what you have to say. As always, I thank you so much for being here, for joining in the conversation, checking out my content. It means a lot to me, guys. If you do want more of these videos, hit that like and that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.